Well, welcome all of my friends to the Thanksgiving week edition of the Everyday Missionary Podcast. And if you are watching this right now, you can see I am in my full Thanksgiving mode. And the way you know that is I am wearing a flannel shirt, a nice, comfortable, perfect for this time of year flannel shirt, which today was perfectly suited. We didn't have power at our house for a lot of the day today, and it was this crazy stormy Tuesday, and it's dark outside even though it's only like 4 o'clock right now. It just feels ominous. And so, man, a flannel shirt is perfect. Another reason I love my flannel shirt, it's a little baggy. And I like it baggy because this is Thanksgiving week. In fact, I got my slippers on. I got my pants on that have about 1.5 inches of room to grow in the pants because by the end of this week, there will be 5 pounds more of me than there is right now. Yes, thank you, Thanksgiving. And I'm going to have all sorts of opportunities to put that 5 pounds on, man. We're talking pies. We're talking like candied yams. We're talking bread upon bread upon bread. We put bread inside of a chicken. That is amazing. Okay, turkey, same diff, big chicken, right? But man, all this stuff, carbs galore, baby. I'm going to be a bigger, flabbier man by the end of the week. But the whole reason for this goes to something the Bible talks about when it comes down to ideas of Thanksgiving. And this is the idea that the Bible promotes that, you know what, in life, there are different seasons. Some seasons you fast, and other seasons you feast. Some seasons are about just being okay with grief, but other seasons are really about identifying the fact that, you know what, even when life is hard or challenged or not what you thought it was going to be, you should still stop and have this sense of gratitude for what is and what God has done. And that, to me, is what this Thanksgiving season is all about. I'll just be honest with you. It's less about pilgrims and indigenous peoples coming together for a meal, like centuries ago. That's less what probably is always in my mindset in this particular week. And more, it's a reminder of what I am called to do as a Christian, and that is to genuinely be thankful. In fact, in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, we are told that we are to give thanks in everything at all times. The same thing is said in the book of Colossians. The same thing is said in the book of Philippians. The same thing is said in the book of Ephesians. Like, there is this thing in which Paul just keeps trying to ramrod before us. Don't forget, in all things you're called to be thankful. That is the art and the science of living out the Christian life in a broken and marred world. And I believe that's an effective way for us to be a witness. It's easy to complain. It's easy to be thankless. It's easy to grumble and gripe about stuff and to see the problems and be a killjoy and put on our inner Eeyore and just be like, nothing's good, right? Like, that's easy to do, but to be thankful, man, that takes a little bit of effort. More than that, though, I can't help but notice that when I read through the Bible, that it commands us to be thankful. Now, here's why I think this is important, and here's the deal. This is Thanksgiving week, so this is going to be a short podcast. If it goes even more than 10 minutes, I feel like I've failed you because I want this to be kind of short, sweet, to the point, and succinct, right? But here's the thing I've been thinking about with this idea of thankfulness. When you go back and you look at the etymology of thank is connected to think. As sing is to sang phonetically, so think is connected to thank. And so really what I begin to realize when I see the Bible is commanding me to do this thing is that I realize that myself and probably all of us, we fall into a trap when it comes to thankfulness. And the trap is we think that thankfulness is an emotion. In other words, we go, there is an event that happens. It triggers in me a feeling, and that feeling is thankful. So we are always looking that we need an event to happen, and that event in our life then creates this thing in me that I don't even control. I just suddenly have this eruption of emotion, and that emotion is a thankful emotion. But see, that is very different than what I think the Bible encourages to do. This is why I think thank is connected to think. Because what the Bible commands is just that. It commands us to a thing. It does not say, go find environments that make you feel this way, and therefore you're going to obey the command. No, it says no matter what's going on in your life, you need to thank. And I think to do that, you have to think. You have to think to be able to thank. Here's what I'm getting at when it comes to the Bible. The Bible knows that life is going to be hard on us, but we're always supposed to be engaged in this practice, which means we are always to stop and think. What has God done for us lately? What has God done for us historically? What do we know that God is doing in the lives of other people? What do we know God has done in the person of Christ, coming into this world, living a humble life, dying a sinner's death, giving to us his position of righteousness so that we might be made right with God and be made friends of God? No matter how big our sins are, no matter how numerous our offenses are, no matter how many times we fail him any given day or week or over the course of our entire life, this idea that we don't earn, he simply gives by his grace, just think on that for just a few minutes. And if you think on that, it gives you all the reason in the world to pivot from thinking to thanking. Saying, God, you know what? Even when life is bad, you are good. Even when things are hard, I know there is an eternity of blessing and joy and relief and release and creativity and expression. And I'm longing for that day. And I'm looking to that day. And I know you've given me a promise that that day is coming. And because I know that day is coming, I can make it through today. Yes, today may have enough troubles of its own. And I'm tempted to worry about tomorrow. But instead, I'm excited about what the ultimate true tomorrow is, because it is a life without end and opportunity without end, because you have given yourself for me. For all of that, this gives us a reason to be thankful. When we stop and think, man, that makes it possible for us to thank. And so that's what I'm going to encourage all of you to do this week as you are going about your meal, as you're Zooming with friends and family, as maybe a couple of you are able to get together for this holiday and spend some time together and everything else. Stop and reflect. Maybe even have that time around the table or on the Zoom call that says, you know what, let's all think for a minute how we can thank. Because we all have something. Even if life is really, really painful right now and really hard, and you feel like, man, things are not going the direction that I wanted them to or expected them to, there is still plenty of space to slow down, to pause, to ponder, to remember, to reflect on what God has done, what God is continuing to do, and what God will always do in our lives, because all things, good and bad, still are ultimately for our good, for those who really are called by God, love him, and are called according to his purpose. We see that in Romans chapter 8. So for all of these reasons and more, we have reasons to be thankful. All we have to do is think it through a little bit, and then, man, the options are before us. And I believe when we're doing that, when we're living outside of the norm and we are not bound by our circumstances and conditions, but rather we're bound by a sensitivity to what God has done, when we think as to thank and people see that, they'll be like, wow, you are not just needing the world to always be perfect for you, but even in its imperfection, you have a spirit of thanksgiving. What's different about you? And we can say, hey, here's what it is. Life is better with Jesus. He gives me a lot better perspective on the realities of life. And when we're doing that and we're living out that spirit of thankfulness, then we are really amazing everyday missionaries.